Hi everybody, so here's a comic I think some people might be interested in. This is a DC limited collector's edition. This comic is about I want to say 10 inches by 14 inches. So it's much larger than the normal comic. And these came out during the mid 70s. I think this particular issue came out in 1975. And on the front cover, it shows some of the stories that are inside of it. On the back cover, there's some other stories here, and it's written. Well, first of all, the art. I saw the art, and I was looking at it, and I was like, "This is a lot better than I expected." There's some hatching here, and here. So the reason is because it's by legendary artist Joe Kubert, and the inks are by artist from the Philippines, Nestor Redondo. And then the writer is Sheldon, and here he's talking about how they actually did. It seems they did a lot of research, and at the end, there's even a bibliography or works cited. And at the time, I think I guess the editor in chief or the publisher of DC Comics was Carmine Infantino, who drew the Flash. For the Silver Age Flash, Barry Allen. And I was looking online, and apparently this is issue 1, and here you can see it's only $1, but there was never another issue. Although at the end of the comic it says it's going to be continued in like future issues, but apparently there's this blog post where the blogger emailed Joe Kubert, and he asked him what happened. And basically, they planned to do more issues, but there was just too much work. So Joe Kubert eventually didn't continue on with this. And even though he was Jewish, he was going to adapt some of the New Testament stories, but obviously that never happened. So in this comic, basically, there's like Adam and Eve. Well, first there's the setup, which is that there's the grandpa and his granddaughter and grandson, and the granddaughter believes in the stories, but her brother is a skeptic. So this is sort of like the framework of why he's telling them the stories. I thought this was funny, where he says, "What makes you so certain that the things you read about in the Bible didn't happen, David?" "Oh, come on, Gramps, I'm no baby. You're only 1 year older than me, David." So I thought that was kind of funny. And here he's basically saying how there's science, but then you're like, well, how did the animals get there and stuff? So that's a common answer you hear. And I thought this was pretty interesting. Here there's an elephant, and the elephant is actually moving. And I feel like if you got a Tumblr artist, the elephant would just be standing around doing nothing. So for the creation story, there's a good double page spread, and it even has where it is from in the Bible. And there you can see some of the water, and then the land, and then the plants, and then the stars and whatever. And then there's a splash page of some more animals. And then here there's the creation of Adam. Typically, I think he's usually more darker skinned, and his hair would be darker. I don't know if that was a coloring decision, but there's like there's other characters in the comic where they have darker hair, so I don't know. So here I thought this was pretty good. There's a foreground and background. And then the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then this was pretty interesting. He's giving them the names. And here he's really vocalizing, I guess, his thoughts. So then here, there's a well-placed tree, you know. And then Eve is created. And then there is the serpent. And here you can see some of the legs. And then here you can actually see how many legs. There's 7. And you're like, well, what if there were 6? Well, I don't know. So then here, they're eating it, and they realize, and then he zapped and loses his legs. So here it says, the woman and her descendants will forever be enemies. It doesn't say, like the offspring of the woman or the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head, which I guess some people interpret as a foreshadowing of Jesus from the Virgin Mary. So that I thought that was just an interesting choice to phrase it as. So the comic was only $1, and it was republished more recently as a hardcover, and I had to search this up. It was like $25, $30. I'm like, what? I mean, it's $1 here, but I guess it's pretty rare. But yeah, talk about a ripoff, you know. So on the cover, there's Moses, or at least I think it's Moses, holding some stone tablets, right? But like maybe the 10 Commandments. But here, I don't know the letters. Is it Hebrew? I think this might be Aleph. If you're into math, I think this is the symbol for representing how many positive and negative integers there are, which but everything else I don't know. I mean, this looks like a Japanese character, but you know, whatever. Or this looks like pi, I don't know. Okay, so the other story, so then there's some historical context. And then the story of Cain and Abel. So it's interesting to see a lamb here. And then Abel dies. And then Cain gets the mark. But it doesn't show what the mark looks like. It's just like some sort of impact here. And then it's talking about the generations, I guess the children and grandchildren of Adam. And then there's something interesting here. So it says that there was generations, 9 generations. And then later it's talking about Noah, grandson of this guy. And technically, well, it was just like the way it was phrased, it looked like Noah was just the 5th generation instead of the 9th or whatever, 9th generation. But I had to double check, like in the actual Bible. And yeah, it just skipped over some mentioning some of the people. Because it was like Adam, and then Enoch. It's a grandchild of Seth. And then Seth was Enoch's Seth was one of Enoch's sons. Or anyways. So then there's the they're building the Noah is building the ark, and then he's getting the animals. And then I'm just reading this and thinking, you know, there's a couple of plot holes here. Like, how did he get the animals? But then there's not a lot of explanation for that. But later there's a lot of explanation for the dove, you know, landing and coming back and not returning. I'm like, why is there so much explanation to like appease people thinking about evaporation, but not enough explanation for like getting all the animals. I'm like, why are you putting like? Did you really put the lions next to the zebras? Like that just seems like a recipe for disaster. And then you're gonna have to like, do you come up with your own head canon? Like, oh God, like magically hypnotize the animals to be docile, and that's how Noah was able to lead them on the ark. But then you're like, well, that's just head canon. You're like, now you're just coming with, is your head canon the same for everybody? So anyways, I'm just like, I feel like there could have been some more explanation there. And then the rainbow. And then here's some more historical context, I guess. This must be from some sort of history book, but it's talking about how people or children were educated back then. Then it's talking about the buildings of the Old Testament. And then the Tower of Babel. So it seems that there are these buildings called ziggurats. And it's believed the Tower of Babel might have been similar to one of these. Typically, isn't the Tower of Babel usually like a giant column with the staircase around it, like a kind of like a spiral staircase going up? I don't know. So it's interesting how there's different interpretations, I guess. But here you can see how maybe it looked what it looked like. And then in here, the writer connects Babel with like babbling. I've looked it up. I don't know if that's the true origin of the word Babel, or if it's called the Tower of Babel because it caused babbling. If anyone knows, let me know. But that's always the common way to. Anyways, so then it's talking about Mesopotamia actually, and it's interesting that Joe KUBERT signed his name here, because these are just like tools. So then it's talking about Abraham, or I guess Abram, and here when he was worshiping a moon goddess. Okay, and then he moves to like another place, and then he has his wife Sarai, and then he has a vision. So he goes to the land. The land, there's a famine. So he goes to Egypt. Or I think I skipped the page. Yeah, so he goes to Egypt. And then his wife, the Pharaoh is interested in her, but then she says Abram is her brother instead of her husband, as a way to like save his life so he's not killed. But then, so he prays to God and they get some help. So then they go back to the land, and then he has his nephew Lot, who is also with him. So then Lot goes off to his own land, and then there's some fighting where Lot is, specifically in Sodom. So there's some fighting, and then Abram has to go help him beat some of the surrounding armies. And then there's the story of Ishmael being born. And then there's like the three visitors. And then there's Abram saying like, what if there are 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 good people? Well, I guess good men in Sodom. And then the visitors go there, and then some of the people want them. And then, okay, here's the interesting thing, where Lot is worried, but then the two visitors, they're like, we're just gonna make everybody go blind. And I was rereading this a while ago, and I was like, why don't like making them go blind is pretty interesting. They could have done other things, I think, more creative, like just turning people inside out. I thought that would be interesting, but I guess visually that would be kind of gross. And then they leave the city, and then they're like, they can't look behind them, right? Do not look back. But then who was able to get the description? Somebody, how did, anyways, like you're like, who was watching the city get destroyed? I was watching one video about some historians, and it seems historians agree that Sodom and I guess Gomorrah were destroyed in a heat event. But they talk about the clouds, fire and brimstone, some destruction, some fire. He says, do not look back. Is this okay? So then let's see. Let's read the first caption first. Okay, so then it says, did Lot's wife turn because of curiosity, or was she looking for her missing family that she hoped was following? No one knows. No one will ever know. For Lot's wife had become a pillar of salt for turning the consequences of turning and looking back. So there, actually, you don't get to see her face. I thought maybe it was going to be like a couple panels of her like slowly turning into salt and then like falling down, you know. So like, but actually, it's just kind of a shot of her looking, and we don't even see her. So then the last page actually is just on the actual cover itself. It says, that was great. Please tell us more, and it'll have to be continued. So as I said before, there was no next issue. This was the first and only issue of the Bible adaptation. And then here's the works or bibliography. And then I mean, I recognize this name. I think he was like an editor. Yeah. So then I do have the Action Bible here for comparison, at least for the first story by Sergio C., whose art I've always thought was like John Byrne's art style, but it's just old-fashioned kind of. But he actually went to the Joe KUBERT school, so maybe his art style is a little bit reminiscent of Joe KUBERT's, and maybe, I mean, God, I wonder if he asked Joe KUBERT about the Bible, his Bible comic, if he was aware of it. So let's see. So, I mean, obviously, the first story was about the creation. Here you have day 1. I guess for reference, we can even turn here. So this was like a double page spread, but this was just a single page. And that was the other thing. Here it says first day, second day. I kind of like the sound of day 1, day 2, you know, but that's just me. So here, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, and then Adam and Eve, and then the fruit, and then the serpent, and then they eat the fruit, and then they leave, and then Cain and Abel. So obviously here it's a lot quicker, but here it's more spread out, decompressed as they say. So I mean, what are the obvious differences? I mean, besides the coloring, the art styles honestly are pretty similar. I mean, Sergio C., his art style is a little more, I don't want to say old-fashioned, but I don't even want to say antiquated, but it is more old-fashioned. Reminiscent of older comics. But yeah. I mean, I would say because this is it takes up less space, a lot of it is more paraphrased. But yeah. So I mean, this single issue, it was, I think, only maybe 60 or so pages. 60 pages. Yeah. I mean, what other stories would you think they would have covered? I mean, knowing that they would go up to the New Testament, I'm imagining they would go up to the Gospels at least. I mean, after Abraham, I mean, I imagine they would go on to talk about Isaac. Or is it Isaac and Jacob? Isaac. And then they would go on to about, I guess, Joseph and his coat. And then maybe Egypt and Moses, Exodus, and then Joshua, and then, I mean, you had to maybe throw in King David there, but you can't have King David without Ruth, so maybe they would go Ruth and then David. And then maybe from there they would go into the Gospels. I don't know. It's interesting to think about if you're interested in that sort of thing, about that sort of stuff. So there you have it. This, I guess, somewhat rare, limited collector's edition published by DC. Thanks for watching. Bye.